Yo, what is up, guys? It's Freddy Knows Ball, and we're back here with a brand new video today. Let's get right into it. All right, so one of the most important things you want to understand for quadratics is the standard form of a quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is going to show up a lot on the SAT, so I would recommend memorizing that. Let's go ahead and get into a practice question. 3x squared minus 15x plus 18 equals 0. So this question's asking how many real solutions are there to the given equation. As you can see, this formula shows up, the ax squared plus bx plus c. To solve this question though, you can literally just throw the equation into Desmos, which is what I'm doing right here. And you'll see that we have two solutions. And so B is our correct answer. Literally, all you have to do for this one is just Desmos it. Pretty much the easy questions for quadratics, just throw them into Desmos. It'll give you the answer. For parabolas, one thing that I want to mention is the vertex, okay? Sometimes a question will ask you the lowest point or the highest point of the parabola, and knowing that it's the vertex can be pretty crucial. So if the parabola is opening down, the vertex is at the top. If the parabola is opening up, the point is at the bottom. You guys will be able to see what I mean. You guys can experiment with that on Desmos if you're not familiar with parabolas, but let's get into another practice question. All right, so this is actually a perfect example of where knowing the vertex comes into play. The function f is defined by the given equation. For what value of x does f of x reach its minimum? So if we plug in this equation to Desmos and we go ahead and look at what it gives us, we see that we have a parabola and the minimum is the vertex because the minimum is the lowest point. This parabola is opening up and we can see that the x-coordinate is negative 2.5 and the y-coordinate is negative 272.25. The question is asking for the x value, and negative 2.5 as a fraction is negative 5 over 2, which is D. And so that's why D is our correct answer here. Next, we have a pretty important question type. So for quadratics, I want to teach you guys this formula because although it might not come up here, on hard math questions, this is very likely to come up. And it is finding the number of solutions of a quadratic when you have a more complex question. And so in order to do this, you have to use what is called the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. When the discriminant is less than 0, there are no solutions. When the discriminant is equal to 0, there is one solution. And when the discriminant is greater than 0, there are two solutions. So just keep that in mind. On the SAT, that will have a pretty likely chance of coming up. That's one part of the SAT that they did kind of nerf Desmos, where with the harder questions, you low-key can't use it. All right, so here is one of the word problems that they give that has a parabola in it. For this one, you don't really need to know much about the vertex or ax squared plus bx plus c, but you do need to understand how to read the graph. So let's read the question. The graph shows a marble's height above the ground y in inches, x seconds after it started moving on an elevated track of a marble run. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the y-intercept of the graph? All right, so the y-intercept is essentially where the parabola is crossing the y-axis. So the marble's height above the ground is the y. So it was 8 inches above the ground when it was 0 seconds after it started moving, because the x-axis is seconds and the y-axis is inches. So that's what I'm interpreting here, and B is exactly that. The marble's height was 8 inches above the ground, 0 seconds after it started moving, or the time it started moving, when it started moving, right? Okay, this is a harder quadratics question, but it's actually pretty simple once you figure out how Desmos works with it. So let me go ahead and put you guys on some game. All right, before we get into this question, I actually want to teach you guys vertex form because it is also something important that you have to know for quadratic functions. And so the vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So this is the vertex form of a quadratic, and it will come in pretty handy, I'm not gonna lie. Now, to start off solving this question with Desmos, you wanna type in the vertex form equation, just the vertex form equation. No numbers yet, just the variables, all right? That's what you want on the first line. Then you want to look at the text and ask, what do we know? We know the maximum height is 51.1 meters 3 seconds after launch. The vertex is 3, 51.1 because height is the y-axis, the seconds is the x-axis. And so you plug in those variables into h and k. H is 3 and k is 51.1. So now on the second line, we have y equals a, x minus 3 squared plus 51.1. Desmos will ask you, do you want a slider for a? And you do, because that's how we're going to find the answer to this question. So you make the slider, and then you drag the slider until you see the parabola passing through 0, 7. And you'll see that you don't even have to manipulate the spread of the slider or the steps or anything like that. You can just get to negative 4.9. And so now you know your a value. So the question wants to know when it returns to a height of 7 meters. If you type in y equals 7 into Desmos, you will clearly see the line intersects at x equals 6. And that's where you can just choose letter B, which is 6. And that's how you turn a really hard question into something that just gets absolutely melted by Desmos, guys. Hopefully that was helpful for you. I know it's kind of interesting because sometimes you can't just know to do that in Desmos. It does come with a lot of practice, but just getting familiar with how Desmos works, all these different things you can do on it. There's so much more that I'm going to teach you guys as well. But yeah, just try to get familiar with it, guys. And that's going to wrap it up for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to leave any questions in the comments below, and like and subscribe, turn on notifications to help support me, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.